Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. As Catherine said, there are over 250 chapters of Creative Mornings around the world. So the global theme is growth, and congratulations, you get the least sexy of them all, discomfort of growth. In addition, you get my prepubescent voice, because Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I did not have a voice this week. So bear with me if I need to take some extra sips of water. If I have a coughing fit, you can take the piece of paper and draw some lobsters on it while I'm coughing, and then we'll get back to the programming. But I'm so happy to be here today. Don't worry, we'll get to the paper later, to discuss the discomfort of growth. And it's really a subject that I feel like nobody prepared me for in life and nobody talked about. So that's why we're going to talk about it today. Before we dig in, I want to know what your associations are with growth. In French, in English, just shout them out.
Pain, expansion.
Pain, expansion.
Nonlinear.
Nonlinear.
Botany.
Sorry.
Botany.
Botany?
Yeah, botany.
Oh, like that.
Responsibilities.
Responsibilities.
Adolescence.
Adolescence. Inevitable. Ooh, you are challenge. So as we dig into growth, I think it's interesting that I chose to do this talk in English. If I wanted to be more uncomfortable, I could have done it in French, but I do. Je parle français, après on peut discuter en français, but today we're going to do it in English. And in French, I didn't actually know until I was working on this presentation that there are two words in French for growth, croissance and grandir. And croissance is kind of the business and economic growth, and grandir is more of the personal development. And in English, it's all under one umbrella, but we're going to look at growth in so many different ways today. Starting with chapter 1, the disillusionment of growth, and that growth is not always comfortable. So we look at life as kind of a linear thing. We go, we start, and we finish. We have these experiences, but we know it doesn't always feel like this. And so we also have this idea of growth and getting bigger and larger, and we grow with time, but we think a lot about growth with this line that's up and to the right, these metrics of success, and it always gets better and better and better. And as somebody who's self-employed, I don't know if anybody else can here relate, you have a couple of really good years and you're like, this is awesome, I know what I'm doing. And then when a year doesn't go as well financially, it's a hit to the ego and it just hurts, and we think we're the only one, and then we're embarrassed to talk about it and we don't share our work, so it gets into this different cycle. But society sees this line as success. And I'm wondering if it's actually a line of disillusionment. For me, this line is far more representative. Life is messy, and we're circling around and doing all these different things. But this all speaks to the growth. We often can get where we need to go, but the process and timeline doesn't look like we expect. And that, for me, has been an interesting lesson to learn. And I like to always share these visuals because I think we need the reminder to feel a little bit more human, that life can be messy. And so, in addition to looking at this reminder, I like to annotate it. And there are a couple parts that we don't have time to go through everything today, but this big one is sitting in discomfort. I remember there was a time when thought leaders were saying this, and I didn't really understand it until I was in it. And it was like, oh, and part of it was a stretch. This idea of growth from failure and loss. Some of my biggest growth came after losing my mom to cancer. And also my favorite gym coach talked about there's no progress without effort. So growth is all about taking the small steps that we need to get where we want to go. So chapter 2, our stories shape how we see growth. And sometimes our stories that we tell ourselves are not always supportive. So it's lovely to see so many familiar faces in this room, but for some of you, it's nice to meet you for the first time. Thank you so much for being here. So I'm Ann Ditmeyer. I'm an American who's been in Paris for 16 years. I have 2 passports. I got it the hard way through starting my own business. Everybody told me I couldn't. So if you want to grow, move to France, survive bureaucracy, and you'll do well. My background's in design. I always told myself I couldn't draw, but all these doodles you see today are my own. And these days I work as a creative coach and workshop facilitator, running my own community called Mapping Your Path, but also working with schools and organizations and teams to bring a little bit of creativity into the workplace and help people think differently. You also need to know that this is little Ann, and little Ann was called the quiet one. This picture might not be the best representation, because sometimes I think when we're very young, we're really our true selves. But especially in elementary school, everybody called me the quiet one. And so I assumed that as my job title. And I didn't talk. And I was like, okay. And then I thought it was really helpful, even in high school, to not have an opinion and say, I don't care, I don't know. Also not very helpful. So every year, little Ann has been cracking her shell. And some of my friends say, like, oh, but you go up on stage, it's really natural for you. I was like, okay, you can tell yourself that story, but it's been a concerted effort to put myself out there and stretch and try things and realize that I have messages to share. So another reason that I was dubbed the quiet one is because I moved a lot when I was a child. And so I moved for elementary school, middle school, high school. I was lucky to start a new era each time I moved, but I was also the one who was eating alone. But it's not a bad thing, and I have no problem eating alone today. But I wanted to kind of get my groundings and my feeling again, and and I still kind of saw this being a quiet one as a bad thing and an insecurity. And it was years later that my mom would say I was quietly taking everything in. So again, it's how we frame things. But I moved around a lot, and that shaped my growth as well. But it was also an adjustment period. And I think when we move, people are like, oh yeah, I'm moving, everything's great. But there's an adjustment period with that, which is another kind of growth. So the other thing you need to know about me is I love maps. And every year I draw a map inside my Mapping Your Path community. So 2025 is the year of connectivity. And one of the things I put on the map at the beginning of the year, and again, we cannot predict the future as much as we want and how we envision our growth, was to put myself in the arena. And so I had no idea that this was going to happen, but I feel like this is just one more way to honor that and help connect the dots. So I like maps too, because often we think we need to do a certain thing and take certain steps, and this is going to happen, and it's how it's going to work out. Again, it's not always the reality that shakes out, and that's not a bad thing. The reason I love maps is because we're reminded that there's so many different ways to get to our destination, and we can take the scenic route and detours and enjoy the ride. Chapter 3, growth happens through action. Sometimes we think we have to be really serious, but I think the best kind of growth happens when we allow ourselves to have some fun and to enjoy the process. So we all have our comfort zones. It keeps us safe. We don't have to fear what's around us. But we know sometimes that can keep us stuck as well and frustrated. So really, the magic is what happens outside of our comfort zones. And it can be scary to kind of take that first step, but it's always worth it. And I know I'm not the first person to say the magic happens outside of your comfort zone. But I think we need these reminders, because we see what everybody else is doing online and everything looks smooth and perfect, and we think it comes easy to them. But we have to remind ourselves that maybe there's a small step that we can take outside of our comfort zone. And so, again, not the first person to say this, but I might be the first person to use bananas to help people step out of their comfort zones. If you're new to my work, one of the things I'm known for is banana mapping, which is, yes, drawing on a banana. I change up my prompts. We're not going to do it during this talk right now because we don't have enough time, but I did bring bananas. So afterwards, bananas, ballpoint pens. There's not a banana for everyone, so we're going to have a collaborative banana map if you're interested. But I love banana maps because they don't last forever. You can't be a perfectionist, and it takes you comfortably out of your comfort zone. So it's just about staying open to a new experience and trying something and allowing yourself to be surprised along the way. So I'm just as surprised by banana maps as everybody. They're actually inspired by a student of mine in an online Skillshare class I taught over a decade ago, Phil Francis. Took the hand-drawn mapping assignment and did it on a banana while on his commute in the UK. And so that inspired me to, back in April 2020, when Tina Roth-Eisenberg, who is up here, second box from the left, who is the founder of CreativeMornings, which again is the reason we're here today, she messaged me and said, hey, Anne, we're going to experiment with these things called field trips. So they're virtual. Obviously, we could not go outside at that time. Would you be interested? And I said, sure. Like, I taught this class years ago about maps. People like maps. And so she said, sure, do you want to come? She's like, have fun with it. And I told her, well, I was going to tell people to bring their own banana and draw banana maps. And she was like, oh. And so unbeknownst to me, she brought the entire Creative Mornings team. So in New York is the headquarters, where there's a small team who runs it all, who helps make sure all these volunteers do everything. And there were hundreds of people on this Zoom, and I've run it almost 20 times now. But the joy and delight of mapping on a banana, or it's all-inclusive, where if you had a lemon, or we've had sweet potato maps, but it's about just having fun and enjoying the journey. And epiphanies really do happen on these maps sometimes. I can't guarantee it every time, but it takes people out of their comfort zones. And were any of you here in Paris when I did the quick warm-up of banana mapping? Yeah, okay, 3 or 4 of you. Okay, so this is why you come to Creative Mornings. You never know what you're going to experience, and lots of creatives are trying out things. So you never know where it's going to lead. So this was March 2024. And then backwards to October 2020, because of those Creative Mornings field trips, I found myself in this very building, my little Paris, and they had recently launched the École Traverse, and upstairs they filmed this. So this is 2020. I recorded my first workshop in French, live, for their creativity school, and talk about a stretch. And it wasn't a stretch to do it in French, a little bit, but I'm so used to the comfort of my computer, my Zoom screen, and I was like, oh no, I need the chat. I like to interact with people. So we had Charles from the team like be the voice of God and read me the comments. But it's about trying one new thing and seeing what it leads to. So discomfort is your invitation to grow and to step into something bigger. And I think sometimes we think these steps need to be really big, but really taking that step to do the thing that might feel like a crazy idea or a little bit wild, and you never know what it might lead to. Chapter 4, the discomfort of putting your work into the world is real, and we do it anyway. So I know there are a lot of creatives in the world who here knows what it feels like to have to put yourself out there and put your work into the world. Yeah, this room more than most understands it. And it's a really incredible process, but unless you're in it yourself, you don't know. And a lot of the world projects onto you. So in March 2024, I launched my first book. And it's so exciting when something's new. And it was such a process. I didn't tell anybody I was writing it because I needed that sacred process of creating to be my own. And I loved growing through learning the process and what it meant to put a book into the world and all the little details. But I didn't fully understand the discomfort of sharing the work with your world, which it was really fun in the beginning, but now it's finding the momentum to keep going. And we can tell ourselves stories like, oh, I'm a broken record, I don't want to annoy people. Oh, the algorithm won't show it to anybody, so why bother? But that's the discomfort of growth. We have to keep going anyway. So one of the key messages in this book is that discomfort is not a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's a sign that you're doing something right. So often we can say, oh, this is scary, and we can turn away from doing it. But really, that's our invitation to step into something bigger and to go for it. You know, we think everything needs to feel perfect and smooth, but sometimes there is a little bit of resistance, and that's not a bad thing. It's often a sign that you're asking the right questions. Thing to know is that inaction is not growth. Even when you're young and we're growing taller and bigger, we're still nourishing ourselves and eating in order to get our height and our weight and to grow. But it's really action is the key step in order to grow. And we can be frustrated sometimes when nothing is changing. But for me, this concept of override, and I had to write a whole book about it in order to really dig in, is that sometimes we think we want things to change, but unless we take a new action, we're not going to have a new outcome. And so there's not a perfect translation to override in French, but the closest we've gotten to so far is outrepasser. We can discuss later. But again, the nuance of language and what it can mean. So what is pressing override? Override can mean many different things in many different situations. But it's knowing I see or feel the fear, and I'm going to go do the thing anyway. And sometimes we can be guilty of having these big ideas, and we think we need to do this massive step, and like, we have this huge plan. But I want to invite you to take the smallest step, because it's all the small steps over time that really do add up. Because the magic is in the small steps. And this is something that society does not acknowledge. And it's the small steps. And it's in the small steps, it's taking them, but it's also celebrating them. So we are used to, I introduced this as sitting with discomfort, is so knowing that it might not always be comfortable as we're doing something. But really what I want you to do today, I want to invite you to dance with discomfort. I want you to experiment and play and try something new. So you all have a piece of paper and a pen at your seats. There's a few extras around, so raise your hand. This is a 20-second exercise. So the goal is not to be perfect. Not to be perfect, anyone. Perfectionists in the room. And again, this is your invitation to play, not overthink, have some fun. You have 20 seconds to draw a lobster. Dessiner un homard. And eyes on your own paper. Does anyone know how to paper? It's okay, I just heard, I don't know what a lobster looks like. Go for it anyway. Get creative. You have about, okay, good progress, good progress. You got 10 seconds left. Normally I have music, but. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, hands down. Okay, show your neighbors just really quickly. Look in front of you, behind you. Okay, everyone. Okay, everyone, I'm going to bring you back. Let's give yourselves a round of applause. Okay, well done, team. We're getting towards the end, but thank you for indulging me. And do you see how the energy just changed? And there were some amazing laughs in this room. So we'll get to why we drew a lobster, but I'm sure were some of you thinking, I can't draw, this is not good, I don't know what I'm doing. We have to pay attention to our self-judgment and how we're thinking about situations, because some discomfort is natural, it's not a bad thing. Those 20, 30 seconds, you survived, congratulations. And again, discomfort is natural, and you never know what it might lead to. So this concept of the lobster actually came to me courtesy of Kemi, who's in the room today, who was up on the stage back in December as a Creative Morning speaker, which is interesting proof that you never know what one person can say in any context that might stick with you. So I went for a massage with her. She's amazing. And at the end, she told me about this video I should watch. The video is 1 minute and 30 seconds by Dr. Abraham Tversky, and it's called How Do Lobsters Grow? And it's all about how lobsters feel uncomfortable in their shells, and they have to go hide until they grow a new one. And they have to grow a new shell over and over throughout life. And for me, this is kind of like the missing piece that they never taught us in school. Outgrowing your shell is part of growth. It's not a bad thing. And if you're frustrated or the same thing happens over and over and nothing is changing, or you feel annoyed, or you're just complaining all the time, it's really your invitation to be like, okay, I want to try something new. When I launched Mapping Your Path, it was scary and terrifying, and I'm so glad I did it. And I remind my clients that every time I launch it, it's just as scary as it was the first time, because it's about trusting and putting myself out there and reaching people. But I can't read other people's minds, but I know that it's about keeping going anyway. So now that we have lobsters in our everyday, I hope that they will kind of be your reminder to dance with discomfort. And when I wrote Override, you never know when, what's going to resonate with people. And that chapter, Dancing with Discomfort, somebody did a live reading and shared it on Instagram. My whole Mapping Your Path community has started lobster spotting. And it's like in a meditation app, somebody's like, oh my God, I have to take a picture of your pants to her colleague. Artwork, like there's not just one lobster, there are like so many lobsters in this one picture. This is in the Paris metro, so yes, lobsters can be found in Paris too. And I have a global community with people around the world who join my work. And it's really special to kind of see people capture different things around the world. I couldn't find the picture of the lobster sandals that exist. But again, it's to bring some lightness. But one of my clients discovered that there's a friendship bracelet pattern in order to make lobsters. So finding different simple ways to embrace the lobster. If you want to start a daily practice where you draw a lobster in your notebook every day, see if you get better or don't get better, but just as a little reminder. So at first I was going to say go lobster spotting, but I want you to start lobster spotting. You don't have to look very hard. They're oddly trendy, as are bananas, like the number of people who send me banana things, or I see bananas around the world in forms other than bananas, is staggering. So start lobster spotting and let the lobsters be your reminder that the delights of discomfort are real. So there are only a couple slides left, and I'm going to let you connect. But my last question for you is, what is one area of your life where you'd like to grow? So don't overthink this. You can write it on the same page or on the back side of your lobster. You know, what comes to mind first? How would you like to stretch, evolve, transform, maybe step in the arena? For some of you, it might be a pivot out of what you're doing or stopping doing something. Because sometimes the discomfort isn't from doing more or doing too much. It's from stopping doing something that we've always done. So my invitation for you today and always is to let discomfort be a clue that you're doing something right, not that something is wrong. That you are not alone and you're just growing, and it's part of life. So, I would love if you would stay in touch. You can find all my information. This QR code takes you to my website, takes you to anneditmeyer.com/cmparis. And if you want the slides, there's an option to download them there. And please, if you see lobsters or you banana map, tag me at Prêt à Voyager online. There are books for sale today. There's a QR code for checkout. Catherine might have a few more things to say today, but really, my invitation for you is to go meet a new lobster. The point of Creative Mornings isn't just to come, get inspired. It's also to connect, meet people from the community. As the shy, quiet one growing up, it was hard for me to talk to new people. And years ago, I set the intention that every time I go to a new event, I have to talk to one person. It doesn't have to be good interaction. It doesn't have to lead anywhere. But you know, it's really fun getting to know so many of you over the years with Creative Mornings. But we all started as strangers. So share your lobster, show it to somebody else. I can't wait to see your lobsters. And thank you for stepping into the discomfort of growth.